Hello, everybody, and welcome to Firefly Chats, the show where we talk all things The Last of Us. I am your host, James T. Keegan, and today things are getting dark because we're talking episode 8 of HBO's The Last of Us. So I have a full house on the panel for this evening, so let's get them on the screen. First up, you know him as the Ginger Geordie Geek. It's Peter.
How are you doing?
What's going on, man? How's things?
Very good, very good. I'm hyper for this one, James. Well, spoilers, just going to go straight away. This is my favorite episode so far. Loved this. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think a lot of people will probably say that as well. And out of all the episodes so far, this is the one I have the most to say about. So it's going to be an interesting conversation anyway.
Good stuff.
Yeah. Next up, the mythological beast that is Hydra Collectibles. How's it going, Luke?
I'm good. You were very energetic with this this intro today.
I do a little breathing thing to hype myself up, like I'm on. That's it. You excited to talk about episode 8?
Yes, very excited. This is something that I have a lot to say about.
Yeah, awesome. I'm looking forward to seeing what you think.
Well,
yeah, probably. Next up, we have GP Venom. How's it going?
Heyo!
Heyo! What's up?
I'm all good. Should we call the Green Geordie Geek tonight?
Atmospheric, man. It's atmospheric.
Quadruple G, I think, of his has a ring to it, doesn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like the absent fairy.
Absolutely. Next up is everybody's favorite attention-seeking geek, Ben.
I miss a couple of weeks and you bring on GP Venom and Hydra Collectibles before me.
It's just the order I have down below, man. Don't take anything personally. How are we?
Good, yes, yeah. Struggling to sort of fit life around all of your lot bloody midnight streams and God knows what. So I've dragged myself on tonight so I can be part of it all. And looking forward to dissecting another episode of The Walking Dead. Let's go.
Goodbye.
The Mandalorian.
How dare you say such blasphemy here?
So easy.
Yeah. Next up, we have Pass Point Comics.
What is going on? The Last of Us Familia, episode 8. Oh my God! I can't wait till we start talking about this. We should do a bet to see how many times James cried during this episode.
I cried putting the slides together at a moment I didn't cry at in the show. So yeah, I know we'll get to it.
Yeah.
And The Last of Us, but not the least of us, and one of the founding members of this podcast, actually going way back. It's my good friend, Other Ben. How's it going, Other Ben?
Hey, handsome. Now, am I obliged to say AO?
You get bonus points, definitely.
AO. That's for you.
Awesome.
I'm happy to be here. Guys.
Yeah, it's good to have you back, man. We for long-time viewers, we used to do Firefly Chats together when the show was kind of in production and looking at stills and stuff. So we used to talk. We did 2 of them. Yeah.
Wow. Before us?
Oh, no. Yeah. I had a life before you. And Ben is my very close friend. I've known him since I was 12. We went to school together, and then I followed him to college, and then college again, and then college again. So
you followed Ben.
Yeah. He said, "I'm going to do this course," and I was like, "I'll do that too." Yeah, just to have a good time,
See, now it's less weird that he was so pleased to see you.
Yeah, of course, yeah. Always a pleasure. Sure. Right, guys.
I followed him to YouTube, so I followed you to YouTube.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there you go. Took initiative. We have a pretty hefty episode to get through, so we'll get to it now. But just first up, a couple bits of news during the week. Episode 8 has reached 8.1 million viewers. It's up 74% from the first episode, which is insane. Ben, Other Ben, are you surprised at like how much reach the show has had?
Who's Other Ben?
Your Other Ben.
Irish Ben. Let's just call him Better Ben. That might work better. You know
Irish Ben, Mr. Woods.
Irish Ben and the Ben. I'll settle for the.
Okay, yeah. Go on,
Ben. What's the question again?
Are you surprised? Well, first up, we haven't had you on the show yet. So what have you thought about the series like up to this point? And are you surprised at how like it's incepted pop culture so heavily?
I am. It was pretty I mean, it took over the globe by storm. Like,
yeah.
there's people
Pedro
that,
Pascal's everywhere.
yeah, especially for like a genre like this, like a horror zombie genre, and also something that's adapted from a video game. Really weird that this is like really striking a chord with people. As far as how I think of the series so far, maybe we can get into it later on. But because I played the games, I watch it sort of dissecting it a bit more than I think. Like I don't watch it as a new viewer. You know what I mean? So I have like thoughts on the entire series.
Yeah, okay. I think that's fair. Like me going in, I'm like, are they going to do this scene? Are they going to do that scene? Oh, this scene might be coming up. Oh, they didn't do this. So, like I'm on the same kind of plane as you in that way. But yeah, just incredible. Like, we're seeing Saturday Night Live sketches and that kind of stuff with it. So yeah, it's curious. And then this other bit of news. So this was reported like before the Pedro Pascal was cast. I remember this like kind of broke, and I had actually written a video on it, waiting for the official confirmation, and then it was changed to Pedro Pascal. But Mahershala Ali was like in negotiations for it, and it was basically at the point where they were going to sign the deal. So I'm curious, you guys, what you think of that? Like, would you have been curious to see his performance, or do you think they went the kind of better route with Pedro? Start with Peter.
I mean, I can't fault Pedro's performance, so I can't kind of imagine anybody else in the role at this point. That said, this guy's tremendous as well, so it would have been interesting to see his take. But can't wait to see him in Blade. But yeah, I'm kind of all in with Pedro at the moment, I'm afraid.
Yeah, I'm the same. I think they took the right route with it anyway. Luke, what do you think of this casting? Would this have been interesting?
So do you know what? He's a great actor. I really do think that both people are great actors, but this is going to be quite controversial. I wonder if he did get the role instead, would this then be as successful as it is now, and would people then start calling it woke because they've started like doing the race swapping and this, that, and the other compared to the game? I wonder if it would have those sort of negativities about it. Yeah, but there's a lot of idiots out there. This is the thing, right? So, if you can have the best actor in the world portraying these roles, but there's always going to be the other people who want the fit that is from the subject material that they know. Yeah. So
well, it's interesting.
I personally don't know anything about the game either, so it wouldn't have bothered me. For me personally, anyone could have been in the role, and I would have just taken it as it was as a TV show. But yeah, it does make me wonder.
Yeah, technically, it is a race swap because Joel's white in the game and he's Latino in this show. But Joel does Pedro looks like Joel, I think, But it was something that people were kind of upset about at the time, and I think this would have gotten extremely vitriolic if it had been cast. I would personally have really been curious, and I was kind of supportive of the casting when I wrote a video about it. But I think you're bang on. Like, I don't think this show would be like. I think it would still be huge. But like Pedro Pascal has a certain like meme ability to him. Like, people just love him, and he's everywhere now. Like, he's probably the biggest actor in the world at the moment.
I mean, would we do it the other way? Would you like to see Pedro play Blade?
Well, that's a whole other ballpark there, Luke.
Well,
Ben,
if you look at, I'm not even gonna with that. Hey, it would have been incredible. Like, equally amazing actor. So I guess I'd be down either way, really. So yeah.
Efren?
I agree with Ben. Both are great actors. Yeah, I mean, there must be an audition tape of him somewhere with this role.
I'd love to see it. Yeah, I think I can almost picture him doing like the Sarah death scene or something. Like I think he would have nailed that.
I mean, I can always see him almost like a stepbrother to have another role in this show too. He's such a great actor.
Yeah, definitely. GP, any kind of thoughts?
Yeah, it would have been interesting to see. Obviously, you would get the assholes who are on the far right whinging about it if it did happen.
Yeah,
die-hard fans. But yeah, it wouldn't have bothered me because I've not got that connection to the game. Obviously, I've watched the game and everything, but I haven't played through it, so I haven't got that real die-hard connection. So yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And Mr. Woods.
I mean, it would work. He's fantastic. It's interesting that you mention casting people of different races for characters, because Joe or Pedro Pascal, he's Chilean, isn't he?
Yep.
Yeah. But he's still like, he's the spit of Joel. But then you have Sarah, his daughter, who was black. You have Tommy's wife, who was black in the TV show, but white in the video game. So it's interesting that like this idea of casting people of different races. But I don't know. I'd watch it.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, so I would still watch it.
Completely agree with all. The only other thing I would say, and you know what I'm like with names, I'll butcher. How do you say his name? Sorry,
Mahershala.
Mahershala. The only thing I would say is Mahershala. Everything I've seen him in, and even that image, he's an incredibly cool, dapper-looking guy. He oozes kind of cool charisma, and I don't know if that's the right fit for the character. Whereas Pedro looks like he's been dragged through a hedge backward. He looks like he's had a life and he's been beat up a bit. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm saying that the guy couldn't act his way out of it. I'm sure he could, but I don't know. He doesn't look like he's survived an apocalypse.
Yeah, okay. I think that's fair enough. It's curious, and I was, I think it would have been interesting. But Pedro Pascal's my absolute favorite actor, and was at the time he was cast. So I'm happy the way it turned out. Anyway, so episode 8. This is a hefty one. So as we always do, we'll go through and just kind of give our kind of broad thoughts on the episode before we go scene for scene. So we'll start with Mr. Woods down at the bottom and work our way up. What did you think of episode 8?
Obviously, it's fantastic. Like, this is premiere television. Funny enough, this is like the best TV show I've seen since Chernobyl, about Craig Mason. So it's interesting like that. But I think myself and yourself, James, might have some discussion later on about the TV show versus the video game, because I think this might have been a bit worse than the video game.
I agree, and I have throughout the slides exactly why I think that. But I'm curious to get kind of 100%. But yeah, no, I'm on the same page as you there. GP, another person who's familiar with the source material.
Yeah, I mean, you've talked about this one before, and I've really been in anticipation for this episode, because this does really get really dark, and that's just my cup of tea.
All right. Efren, what do you think of episode 8?
When we first started talking about these shows at the beginning, remember some people were complaining that she wasn't the right actress for this role.
Yep.
If anybody has seen this episode, you guys, nobody should be saying she wasn't the right actress. I mean, I thought it was so good and traumatic, what she went through. I looked up her age after this, but I was going, God, they made her do this. I know it's just acting. But she's 19 years old. I mean, man, they must have had a counseling there for her, because this was, they were heavy scenes, made me uncomfortable, some of them too.
I think, for me, like in the game, Ashley Johnson's performance is basically untouchable. So it didn't matter who played her in the show. But there's moments in this episode particularly where I think she like even surpasses Ashley Johnson's performance.
James.
So, yes.
Could I ask you a question?
Not to
derail you. Is Troy Baker and Ashley Johnson still your Joel and Ellie, or is it Bella Ramsey and Pedro Pascal? Because Pedro Pascal is my Joel now.
Pedro and Troy are kind of level for me, but I would say Ashley's still my Ellie. But I look at this show and I see Joel and Ellie, So I think they nailed it.
God bless you.
Yeah. Then episode 8.
I think it could have come earlier in the series, an episode like this. It felt like a weird placement of this kind of little mini arc. It was. I mean, not even an arc. It was all kind of wrapped up with a bow on by the end of the episode. And how many episodes have we got left? One more? Is it?
Yeah. There's 45 minutes left of this show. Yeah.
Yeah. Very kind of strange that, like, usually traditionally you'll have that kind of penultimate episode. This didn't feel like a penultimate episode. It was it was good. I mean, every single episode has just been brilliant TV, but yeah, the placement of this felt a little off for me.
Okay, I think that's fair. I'm curious if you'll feel that way after the next episode, but we'll see anyway. Luke, episode 8.
Yeah, so this was right up my alley, much like with GP. This is my wheelhouse, this sort of episode. As soon as we saw this other group, I knew exactly what they had been doing. So much so that I even pointed it out to my wife before it was revealed to us in said episode. And I won't say just yet what it is, but she turned to me and she said, "How do you know that's what they're doing?" And I said, "It's because that's what I would do."
What I think you would do is the same as what you're talking about, Luke.
So there's certain things. This does go. There is a line, isn't there? There's some things that are really dark that you just don't go near, and then there's things that you kind of go, yeah, maybe if I was in that situation, I would. So we'll get to that soon.
All right, just looking forward to it. And Peace, episode 8. So, like you said, this is your favorite.
I mean, I'm not sure how I follow that really. My mind's racing through the episode now, thinking what Luke would actually do. He's sick of. So I absolutely love this. I thought this was superb. One of my complaints so far in the series, and it's a minor complaint because I've loved the series, is that I never felt that sense of danger and dread in some episodes. It didn't feel like they were in some kind of apocalyptic society. Going back to the superb Bill and Frank episode, they lived for years and years and years without any issues really that was saw. This is the first episode where I felt really tense all the way through, edge of my seat. Much like Luke, I kind of there's a scene where I turned to my wife and said, "Yeah, that they're doing something here." So I kind of guessed early on that things were going to go awry. But yeah, I loved it. Tense, superb acting from everybody involved. I think my favorite episode so far.
Awesome. I'm happy to hear it, man. For me, this is like I would say most fans would say their favorite sequence in the game, and the episode that most people were looking forward to is definitely the episode I was most looking forward to. And I feel like there's a particular sequence that I think is kind of fundamental to this arc working, and it's not in this. Now, we do get some other additions that I think are really interesting and explore certain elements of the original in a cool way, and I really like that. But it's sort of at the cost of what I think makes this not just like great, but like a masterpiece of a sequence. So I wouldn't say disappointed, but I think it's not quite at the level that it is in the game, and we'll get to why. But we'll go to this opening scene. So we get this little kind of funeral, sort of, is it? That there's like a memorial kind of thing that they mention, and this man is kind of preaching to everybody, and then we meet David. Just off the bat, did you get kind of sinister vibes from this scene? Peter, we'll go with you first.
No, I wouldn't say from this scene, I wouldn't say sinister, but I got creepy kind of weirdo vibes.
Yeah.
I was thinking religious kind of zealot, if I'm honest. But I didn't get kind of sinister vibes yet.
Yeah, because I feel like there's like you can feel it in the room. Like you see this guy praying here, there's a bit of like fright, and the way that David is carrying it. But Luke, first off, what was your kind of first impressions of David?
So this must be worse for anyone that's actually played the game and knows what's going to happen. But for me, it was just a case of knowing this type of show. It was like as soon as you see these sort of religious people in an apocalyptic scenario, you know that there's something up. Not to like be that sort of stereotype or anything like that, but it is something that's been played often in these sort of horror films. So immediately I knew that there was something up, and like I say, as more unfolds, we start to see other things, and like I say, I immediately guessed what was going on based on that. But I think it was mostly because we've seen it before in other things.
Okay. Ben, what was your kind of first impressions of David?
Well, the moment anyone reads a Bible, I'm immediately suspicious.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, and that's probably my criticism of this episode as well. I probably did find elements of it fairly predictable. I think, like, I felt like there was an awful lot of kind of signposting going on from the start. Really, like and my wife Grace watching it as well. I don't think we sort of knew from the off that he was going to be the bad guy. You know, I don't think they did a good job of, whether they were trying to or not. I don't think they did a good job of trying to kind of cloak him under the disguise of a good guy. I just saw through it straight away. But maybe I watched too much movies and TV. I don't know.
You've touched on what kind of my problem is with this episode, Ben, but we'll get to that when it's kind of there's something to compare to. Efren, thoughts on David?
This scene had me totally confused. I mean, I had no idea he was going to be a bad guy, to be honest with you. You know,
okay,
too meek to me to be a bad guy. You know, I thought he was going to help them. You know, but as we know, he didn't. But we'll talk about that later. You know,
Efren's a pure heart, isn't he?
Of course, very trusting.
The difference between me and Efren, you see, it's like immediately I see the worst in people, and he sees the best.
Yeah. GP. As a translation of the character from the games, because the sequence is not in the game. And
I was just going to say, you don't
sort of new as well.
Side of David, in the game, so it was interesting to see. But yeah, you get that cult vibe pretty much straight off the bat. App for the introduction in the game.
I do as well. That scene is that scene is also here. So I'll let the guys know when we get.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Ben. How do you think they translated David on the screen?
Well, to echo what the better Ben said, I'm always sus around a creature. But knowing where this story goes, I don't know. He did great. But
a great actor. But I'm sort of two minds of the scene, because I think it does sort of, like you said, it's cultish, and you feel like something's a bit off. But at the same time, we get this kind of little setup where it's like, can we bury him? The ground is too cold to dig. You know, it's an excuse that we find out later on, and especially like this element with the two, the mother and the daughter, the wife and the daughter of the guy that stabbed Joel, Axel, I think they said his name is. So I thought that was interesting, and that's a cool.
Die for that name alone, I think.
Axel, yeah. But like when he says it, I like that he gives a little look to James, and again, kind of indicating to you that something's not quite right. Speaking of James, this is Troy Baker. So this is the actor who plays Joel in the video games. So it's great to see him there. One of the most prolific actors in voice work at all. He's like in BioShock, he's in Uncharted, he's in like so many, but like Joel, I think is his best performance. I've met him a few times, lovely guy, does a podcast as well. He's also hosting the Last of Us podcast every week with each episode. So
does he watch this here as well?
I would hope so, but yeah, I don't think. But it's nice because like a lot of the time, you know, when you adapt something, you get like the former actor in like a little wink and nod cameo, like Uncharted, where Nolan North showed up, and it's just like, hey, aren't you the thing? But like they actually gave him a role here and something to do. So I thought that was kind of cool. So it was good to see him. And then we get this kind of this conversation where sort of again kind of David pressing his kind of influence on James here and questioning him. I thought was great. But they mentioned the last 6 months has been hard. So like the kind of the horrific element of this is only recent as well, which I think is kind of interesting. But like James is not really much of a character in the game at all. Like he's there, but he doesn't really say or do much at all. Like I think before this show, I probably wouldn't have even been able to name that character, ironically. So it's cool that I think like there's kind of a conflict in him that is interesting that they've kind of added. So they gave him a little bit of depth. So that's nice. But so they say they go hunting, and we cut back to Joel and Ellie, and Ellie's like stuffing herself. It's someone thing you don't think about in like a lot of these kind of survival things is like food. Like you could run out so quickly, like starve. Most people probably starve in this world, and just seeing like how little they had. But she decides to go hunting, and we get this shot of this rabbit. Now, there's a very prolific scene in the game, and this is how. So remember, Left Behind is not in the original release, so this is the first shot you see after Joel falls off the horse, and it's like a rabbit kind of running out in the snow, and then an arrow just comes out of nowhere, and it's Ellie.
Can I just
Go
say
on, Ben?
that is probably the biggest omission from this show, is that one scene.
You think so?
Yeah, that is like one of the greatest things. It's a meme online of the rabbit, because well, just to explain it, like we're seeing in the slides there, it cuts from Joel being injured to this, and it's a little cute rabbit jumping around in the snow, and then out of nowhere it just gets nailed by a bow.
There's loads of like compilations of streamers
reactions and stuff.
And just be like,
check it
oh
out.
my god,
it's on YouTube.
Cry. Yeah, I was really hoping they would include this bit, but they omitted it, unfortunately. Yeah. GP, were you upset that this wasn't in here?
Yeah, it was a bit weird for them to leave it out. Would have shown Ellie becoming more of a hunter as well. I would have loved to see him with the bow.
Yeah, that's a big omission, I think. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. No bow and arrow, but yeah. So like this is also, because Left Behind is not in the original. This is the first time you play as Ellie, so it's a surprise you're playing as Ellie, and there's no mention of Joel. You don't know whether Joel's alive or not, and it leaves that hanging for a little bit. So like I remember playing the game the first time, I was certain Joel was dead, and it felt like this is Ellie kind of on her own hunting, and he's gone.
They should have done that in the show. Like, you could have completely removed all of the shots of like Pedro and stuff, and had people like me, layman's, guessing what had happened, sort of thing.
Yeah, I said this last week. Like, I was curious going into Left Behind if they were going to have any modern parts at all. I think maybe it would have been better to just do the flashback sequence and not show Joel survived at all. But Ephraim might have dropped off the show, as he said. So, yeah, it's like, I'm not watching this anymore. Yeah. But yeah, no, it was cool. It was a cool route. Like, at the time, I was surprised you're playing as Ellie. Like, and it's like, oh, maybe, and she plays differently to Joel. She has like a little switchblade and everything. But yeah, you hunt the deer like in the show, where Ellie shoots the deer. And then we get to David and Ellie meeting. And a lot of this, like most of the script of this episode, is ripped directly out of the game. Like any sudden moves, I'll put it right between your eyes and everything. But yeah, so he says he's from a larger group, and we've seen them earlier with women and children. And he says this in the game as well, but you'd never see any of them. So I always interpreted that as a lie. I don't know if Ben or GP felt that way as well.
Well, you kind of do at the end of the level, really. You see all the men.
You see men, but you don't see women or children.
No, you don't. Yeah.
So I always thought he was just lying about that, was he? In the game, anyway. So I was quite surprised that they showed, the show. Ben, what do you think?
Which Ben? My Ben or his?
You, Ben? Yes.
Yeah. I haven't played this shit, mate. I don't know what I'm talking about.
That's a really good question, actually, because I never even thought about it. I think the David from the video game was a lot more trustworthy. Would you agree?
Yeah.
So that is. Go on. You believe him?
I believed him, especially because it's not a religious movement in the game. It's just a group of survivors. Absolutely, and like this is the first time you meet David in the game as well. He just kind of comes out, and there's two guys, him and James. So yeah, again, pretty much the exact same dialogue. But yeah, Ellie mentions medicine, and that's in the games the first time you realize that Joel might be alive. Yeah. I love the way Ellie kind of empties the rifle. Did that kind of stand out to anyone? Like, she shows she's learned and she's a bit more capable.
I think Ellie. I'm sorry. I think Ellie's more a kick-ass character to other people her age. I know they haven't shown that many young people in this, but the way she's battle weary, she knows how to survive. And I think other people that are like in the houses or the communes that they visited, they're like clueless.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Like it's a you can feel that this character has grown kind of over the show. I think that's been great to see in the game. It's the exact same. So yeah, David mentions let's go take shelter, and we get this kind of similar in the game as well. And James goes off to get penicillin for Ellie to trade for the deer. So this first part is in the game where this kind of sitting down, just the whole you shouldn't be out here all on your own, right? But this is where it deviates, and a couple of you have mentioned this, but the trustworthiness of David, and one in the game, you fully trust him because you're sitting down at the fire, and then a large group of infected attack, and you're kind of back to back. He saves you, you save him. It's about a 30-minute sequence where you're together fighting loads of infected. That he has several opportunities to kill you, or to leave you for dead, or to just run away, and he doesn't take them. So over this sequence in the game, both you as a player and Ellie like grow to trust David, because we've had several characters that we've kind of fought alongside in the game, and they've always been our friends. So the betrayal element of this is what I feel is missing from this episode, I think. And I understand like the budgetary, to have a big kind of action sequence here would, like I'd imagine it costs like, an obscene amount of money to even get a few clicker suits, but it just felt like it was missing to me, like that surprise element. Because in this show, it's 5 minutes within meeting him, that he's not a good guy, and that opening sequence, I think, also kind of indicates that. So, like, did like Efren, you said you kind of didn't think anything sinister of David. Would you say at any point you trusted him?
At the beginning, I trusted him. I thought he was going to help out Ellie and Joe. I was totally, at the end, I knew he wasn't, obviously, for what he does. But yeah, I was totally, I seen him. I didn't, went right over my head. That caught me by surprise.
Yeah. Ben, English Ben, I'll say. Did you, at any point in this episode, trust, or do you just immediately, this is a bad guy?
Yeah, no, there was no point where I trusted him.
Yeah. Luke, any point?
Yeah, very much the same. As soon as we saw him, it was that first scene when he said we can't bury him. The snow's, the ground's too hard. That was when I turned to my wife and said they're eating people. Yeah. It's I don't trust him at all. And
Peter, you immediately didn't were wary of him.
No, I thought he was odd, but I think this exchange. Well, firstly, I would have liked to have seen the clickers. I think that would have played out much better because I love every time they're on screen. But actually, this conversation with him and Ellie, where he explained he was a teacher and all that kind of stuff, I kind of thought, actually, maybe he's going to be okay with this. So, yeah, I'm. See, me and Efren are just kindred spirits, nice, kind people. You see, we'll be dead straight away in this kind of apocalypse.
One of you guys should have sent me a message. Ephraim, don't trust them. Come on. Don't be so naive.
Yeah, because like, keep in mind now, Kathleen's not in the games. So David is really the closest thing to a villain that The Last of Us, the original story, has. And like the fact that Kathleen got 2 episodes and David only gets 1, like I feel like it would have been better to have made this whole episode 2 episodes and had most of this episode be Ellie and David together, so that it is a surprise when he kind of turns. Ben, would you like, or Mr. Woods, would you feel that would have been a better route?
Well, just to piggyback off what you said, in the TV show, every character that like Joel and Ellie have had any sort of close relationship with have been good. So Tess, good. Sam and Henry, good. Bill and Frank, good. So this is actually the first like genuinely bad person, like villain, that they've come across. So I think watching the show, you might get like accustomed to the people that they meet and the people that they spend time with aren't bad. They
yeah.
And then we see David.
Yeah. GP, do you think this was like a missing sequence, like they really needed to?
Yeah, and I completely agree with what you said, James, about it being 2 episodes. Excuse me. That would have worked out better, and I would have kept it some of the clickers in, not like the big sequence that they go through in the game. Just like have a few random ones coming at them from all angles and show that bit of trust between Ellie and David.
Yeah, definitely.
Because in the game, when you do get that turn, it probably knocks you off your feet.
Oh, absolutely. Like I said, you trust, not only does Ellie trust him, but you trust him as well. Yeah. Whereas I feel like in this,
absolutely Ellie kind of in this episode,
yeah, and like just through this short conversation, like Ellie just kind of lowers her guard, and like on the top left picture there, she's like smiling at him as well. So yeah, it's I don't know, it feels a bit rushed to me, and I think this is really what's holding this episode back for me. I don't think it's a great episode, and everything in it is fantastic, but this is like a really crucial element of David's character that's just not really present here at all. And I think it's unfortunate, but yeah, he says his kind of his tagline here is like, I believe everything happens for a reason, pulled right from the games. And this kind of conversation is exactly from the games as well, where he says like we sent people out and one of them got murdered. So this is the guy that attacked Joel, that stabbed him with the baseball bat he's referring. And just like the drop of this, like with a little girl, I think Bella Ramsey sold this kind of moment excellently, and it's fantastic in the game as well. Anyone have any kind of thoughts on this kind of this scene where was your heart kind of in your chest, Peter?
Yeah, it was intense, wasn't it? It was I thought it was just superb.
Yeah. Anyone else any kind of thoughts on this scene? Luke?
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I
have something to say. In the episode 6, they attacked Joel and Ellie. So I mean, it was self-defense. It wasn't, it was murder, but I mean, they went after them first.
Yeah, exactly.
I was like, this guy's confused.
Like, there's sort of a gray area. It's like you killed one of our people, and it sort of almost doesn't matter. But like, also, we find out later what they're doing with dead people. That guy had plans for Joel at that point, which is also kind of a horrific thing. But yeah, when he's mentioned the teacher element, and that also, I think, with the revelation later, has another element to it that's a bit like which I didn't really even think about until putting these slides together.
So James,
yes,
do you think the exclusion of that action sequence when you're fighting with David, do you think that was the missing piece? Because for me, it was the episode length. If we had it kept with David and just like for another 10 minutes more to figure out how that community works, I think it would have, or even 10 minutes more with David and Ellie just talking.
That's what I don't even think you needed that big action scene. I think just more time of them together. Like they could have had to go do something together, or just like something to help build that trust with that character, so that the reveal is a bit more surprising. That's why I felt like because within 6 minutes of this episode, he's the villain, whereas in the game it's probably 45 minutes, maybe an hour after meeting him that's kind of that and even shoe drops, even the reveal of them being cannibals comes well down the line, like towards the end of the whole sequence. Oh yeah. Whereas there's like little indications, and some of the people here have picked up on it along the way, But yeah, so James gives Ellie the medicine, and she goes back to Joel and administers it. I like the whole she doesn't know what to do with it. I thought that was funny. Peter, is this the correct way to administer penicillin?
Well, you'd be better off putting it in a vein, but you can inject it directly into wound areas. It's got quite good clearance, but
I'm surprised that. Can you overdose on penicillin?
If you're allergic to penicillin,
I was going to say I can. I'm allergic to it.
Oh really? Oh wow. Yeah. Do you need a wristband? Do you have a wristband when you go out?
I don't know, but I probably should.
I
don't have anything like that.
It's not nice either when you overdose or react to it either. I've given someone penicillin who was allergic before. That's not good.
Did everybody's heart melt when Ellie kind of crawls up next to Joel? Yeah, it was a nice little scene. Just shows how kind of far they've come, and again, kind of pulled straight out of the game. So yeah, this is the first time we see Joel in the game after his injury. So this is the surprise he's alive moment. So I agree with Ben though. They should have kind of kept that going a bit longer. Like, is he alive or not? I definitely agree with that. So who clocked it at this point? The cannibal thing.
This is the point where I thought. This is the point where I turned to Alona and said, "That's they're eating people here." Like,
yeah.
This is the part where I turned to my wife and said, "I told you so."
Told you so. Ben, did you clock it at this point?
Yeah, well, yeah. Like it was. Yeah, that's what I mean. It was all a bit obvious, I thought, but
yeah. Efren?
Nope, guys, totally naive. I thought it might have been deer or something else.
Well, that's the thing. To be
Efren's
fair,
there chowing down, like,
dang it, this is delicious.
To be fair, though, we know that David had a deer and was bringing it back, so
yeah.
I thought that was a good setup. Like, it's plausible that this could have been venison, and we go back and
look at his face there.
It's the way he delivers. It's the way he delivers the line. It's
the
not
pause as well. It's not, yeah. But this is probably Axel. So this is this woman's wife, this woman's husband that she's like putting in the stew, which is also I think is horrific.
At least he's back
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah, and then like especially it gets even worse, you know. Ben, how do you think the cannibal element was handled on this episode?
Yeah, like I think with this whole show, they definitely it's focused on the kind of the emotions and the words and the humanity of it all. So I think they didn't ham up the kind of the violence, and we didn't see, you know, people getting sawed up and, you know, horrible stuff like too explicitly. So it all kind of happened off screen, you know. So I think they handled it well for the show. But you're talking to like an American Horror Story fan who I just love the kind of camp like goriness, and I want to see all the like horrible stuff, you know. But it suited the show. It was that kind of unsaid, you know, horror, and that's kind of been the theme of the show. I think there's a lot of unsaid, you know, and unseen horrors that are going on beyond the camera.
Yeah, absolutely. Like it is like Irish Ben said earlier that it's like very late in this story that you find that out. So I think like it's a cool addition, like to see the community and see like they've explored the cannibalism a bit more here, and I think that's in a really interesting way. Like especially like the people eating relatives or people they know, I think was a little gross. But so David walks in with the deer, kind of drops it down. Oh, it's a big one. And tells everybody like we found the guy that killed Alec, and I can't believe he slapped her in front of everybody. Does anyone have
That's exactly why. That's exactly why he did, though, wasn't it? Like he's got to maintain his authority and power over this group, because it's all very well that she's shouting out her demands, but he can't have it be that that's the reason why he's doing something. He has to be the one in charge. So by putting her down in public amongst all the others, he's sending a message to everyone that he's still top dog. He's the one who's going to sort this all out. So yeah, it's harsh to see, don't get me wrong, but I totally understand why he's done it.
Yeah, he's the shepherd, you know, and they're the sheep. So that's he has to sort it out. Efren, did this break your heart?
Okay, this is when I realized this is not a good guy. He's a bad guy.
Yeah.
What's gonna happen next? This turned it for me.
Yeah, it was quite shocking, and then you have this really like you know, just creepy kind of moment where he says like, you know, I'm your father now. Basically, it's like horrific. But this part like just makes me gag. Like this woman and like the two women eating their husband or father, like, you know, when it's something I didn't really cop the first time, but like going back doing the slides, I was like, oh my god, that's horrific. And again, this is why I think they really improved the cannibal element. Mr. Woods, compared to like the game, do you like this kind of exploration of the cannibalism in this episode?
It's funny that this will be a weird thing to say, but it seems sort of like they're almost reasonable cannibals.
Yeah,
because in the video game they actively go out and hunt.
Oh, and kill people, yeah.
And in this, they're basically just recycling this poor wife and daughter's husband.
As far as
they hunted Joe, right? That's why Joe got.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? They attacked Joel, so that could have been for food. So we don't know.
No, I don't think they attacked Joe.
He did. Your man came at him with the baseball bat.
Yeah, no, they attacked him, but it wasn't like was that like implicitly to eat him, or was it just
Yeah, because the kind of the
Sure, he was licking his lips when he jumped out.
The kind of the humanizing the cannibalism sort of thing, and just calling it veal.
Yeah.
So yeah, when they go hunting, long pig hunting.
Yeah, and I think earlier when he says like someone spotted some elk, that might have been code for
but also the university that Joel and Ellie were at, and this lodge that they're at, didn't Ellie like take Joel a couple of days while he was wounded before they found him? Yeah, so it wouldn't really be sustainable to go out that far to hunt someone.
Well, you're in Colorado in the winter, so like that cadaver's freezing on the way back.
Yeah, that's probably true.
And they're storing the bodies in sheds, as we see later on as well. So yeah,
maybe they were after the monkeys as like an appetizer, like
possibly.
It's
like when you have Jones. But I also like, you see kind of James's face here. He's like very hesitant about it. David doesn't care, and the rest of the community seemingly doesn't know as well. They're just terrific, really kind of stomach churning. So we come back to Ellie. She sees the group searching for Joel. She tries to wake him up, leaves the knife with him and everything. So she kind of lures them away. I think it was really funny, and I don't know if either of you that are familiar with the game thought this as well, but like seeing the actor who's notorious for playing Joel attacking Ellie was kind of was funny visual to see. Ben, did you think that way?
Yeah. Can I also add, do you think that he could be like a leading man now, Troy Baker?
I think so. He's a leading man digitally. Why can't he do it?
Yeah, because do you remember One Night Live, when they performed scenes of The Last of Us? He didn't look like he didn't really seem the part, but in this, I'm like, oh yeah, I could see him being and stuff.
Yeah, I'd love to see him in more things in live action. Yeah, absolutely, and I think it's entirely possible off the back of the show that we will see that anyway. This will be his break into live action. This sequence in the game is quite a bit longer. Similar like the hey motherfuckers and the horse chase and this kind of people, and she gets shot off the horse. But there's like maybe a 40-minute sequence of her sneaking past people, and she kind of goes through the resource herself before David catches her. But just again, seeing kind of Joel, who in my head is Joel, standing over Ellie with a gun, like ready to shoot her, was funny, I thought. David takes her back, tells him to hunt for Joel. Were you concerned for Joel, and he is at this point?
No, he kind of has plot armor, right? At this point, like I mentioned last time I came on, if they had done this death in this episode, or like not the death but the injury in like this episode, then I'd be more worried for him. But I feel like they played that too soon in the series for it to be something that was actually going to happen. It's getting less and less likely that he's going to die from this injury now. My biggest question, just before we move too far on, is the same with all these apocalyptic shows. The idea of horses, right? They look cool. Don't get me wrong. Having a character riding a horse, it looks epic. But realistically, you couldn't afford to feed yourself, let alone raise the livestock to have a horse running around, right?
I didn't think of that, to be honest. I don't know. What do horses eat? Hay, don't they?
Yeah, but I mean, even just conserving your own energy of getting that all sorted for them, and the amount of water that they would need, and if you've got these zombie or infected things around, regardless, like depending on what show you're watching. Obviously, it's a little bit different here because of snow. But I always just wondered why they didn't ride bicycles everywhere.
That's a hilarious visual. Someone should do a comic book on that. Someone on a bike during the apocalypse. I can almost see that happening. It's an interesting point. I don't know. I never really thought of it. The sustainability of the horses. I suppose like you look at Jackson and they have loads of horses and they're doing fine. Like here it mentions this winter was particularly harsh. I'd imagine that in Colorado, in like a bad winter is bad. And there's not a lot of food around. So like it's they've become particularly desperate in. Because they're kind of unlucky where they are, whereas like Jackson prepped for winter and they're fine,
So did they chop up this horse and take it with them as well? That's what I want to know.
They didn't.
There's a lot of food. There's a lot of food left there. That's what I'm saying. If you're going to resort to cannibalism,
no, the guy said, "2 you guys drag the horse."
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, drag the horse. Yeah, he did.
Okay.
Yeah, there you go.
You see it later on in the episode as well.
How many people are in that are in that little commune of David's?
Like including the women and children?
Yeah, like 16 maybe.
I thought like 20? 30, 40,
30?
50. I think so.
Just curious.
200 people were in that room.
Jesus Christ. My eyesight's
No, he wasn't there.
No. Yeah, but we have this kind of bit where the guy goes in the house and like, oh no, Joel, but he's waking up and the bed's gone. I love and Craig Mason, I was listening to the Last of Us podcast earlier, and Craig Mason said that like Joel at 10% is still like the most dangerous man in any room. I think this shows it as well. Like, just look at his face; he's basically a zombie here, and yeah, he's still able to take this guy out. And this like death face that the guy gives as well, like here on the bottom right, it was just like horrific, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, but this is kind of a lot longer sequence in the game. Like, you know, you're kind of there's loads of people, like 20, 30 guys in the town. You have to kind of crawl around them, and
he takes out 30 guys.
Yeah, probably. Oh my god, you at this point in the game, Ellie's probably killed like 100 people. Yeah, so think about it like that. Whereas in the show, she's not killed anybody at this point, which I think makes like the ending a bit more impactful. But yeah, so she wakes up in the kind of cell. David kind of saying, "Are you hungry?" and everything. Tries to give her the food and all. Yeah. So the kind of predatory aspects of David, had any of you kind of picked that up at this stage?
No. So this is the point where I, severed my connections to this character of, what I would and wouldn't do. This guy became a proper creep at this point, and then I was looking forward to what might happen to him. But prior to that, he just seemed like a good villain. He just seemed like, okay, he's leading this group of people. They're cannibals, but there was nothing seedy about it. There was nothing nasty.
Well, he's not telling people. I think if you were open with the people and had a discussion and said, "Listen, we have food,"
he's not wearing a T-shirt saying "I'm a nonce."
Yeah.
There's definitely a debate to be made that eating people is a pretty nefarious thing to do.
Yeah, I could get on board with that, but not the not the rest.
No. Yeah. So this scene is sort of in the game. It's all one scene, but it's kind of broken up into two in the show. We go back to Joel, and like this felt like the remnants of what you do in the game, where you're sneaking around killing people. Like he finds the dead body. I like that they kind of filmed it that way. And yeah, in the game, it's like two guys grab you and try and stab you and everything, and Joel just kind of takes them out and drags one of them off. This scene is, I think, my favorite Joel scene in the whole series. Like, we've heard about how dangerous of a guy Joel is and how bad of a guy Joel can be, and this is where the first time we really get to see that. We'll go kind of through everybody on your thoughts on this scene, but we'll start with Peter. How did you feel during the sequence?
Yeah, so much like you've just said, James, we've been seeing all along that he's obviously got a past and stuff, and Ephraim is said, well, you've got to kind of do what you've got to do in an apocalypse and all the rest of it. And I don't know if we ever got that sense of how much of a badass he really is. And then this scene comes along, and that bit where I'm going to pop your kneecap off. It's just, you can see that the guy's an absolute beast. I loved it. I thought it was superb. The only thing I would say was he got better very quickly, didn't he?
Adrenaline.
It's getting spinach or something.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it was
like
exactly
in the. I mean, in the show, like he's impaled straight through him in the show, and or in the game, and he's up like he kind of staggers a little bit, and then he's just back to normal gameplay. So I think you're right, but but
I thought the scene was superb. Absolutely brilliant.
Just he's terrifying, isn't he? Luke, any thoughts on this kind of turn of Joel's?
This is why he survived as long as he has. This is who he really is. And it's important to see as well. It shows you that he is someone who is capable of doing bad things. He knows that you can't let these people live. He knows what you have to do to get by. You end up letting someone go afterwards, and it comes to bite you in the ass. You got to, just keep going. So I'm glad we finally got to see it.
Yeah. Like this scene is directly from the games, like it's almost word for word, and it's equally as cool. But yeah, I was very much excited to see this one. Ben, thoughts on this scene?
Yeah, it was good to watch. Yeah, like it's I think these heroes that are kind of morally, sort of grey, are always the ones that I'm more drawn to. Your Indiana Jones, your anti-heroes, the Punisher, Rorschach. It's like they're sort of doing good, but doing it in a bad way. And I think that's always more compelling to sort of witness. So Peter can, have his Superman. I'll have Joel here. But yeah, no, like it's it was a great scene.
Yeah, Efren, did it break your heart seeing Joel be such a bad guy here?
Before I talk about Joel, the scene on the upper right hand side when he put the knife in his mouth, I thought he was going to break his teeth off.
Yeah. Well, this is I'm happy you mentioned that, because he does this exact same thing. The whole point of the map, and it better be the same spot with that like old couple that he finds in the cabin a couple episodes ago. Okay. Where he says, "Point where we are," and she better have said the same thing. So like it's a tactic he's used before. But I just love the way like none of this phases him. Like he's done this before. Probably to people less deserving of it as well. GP, how do you feel like they translated this scene?
Yeah, I'm glad they kept this bit in short, and it just goes to show what sort of person Joel is. He knows the world. He's he's the most level-headed person in this world, because he just knows what he needs to do to get by and without any remorse.
Yeah, and there's like an element of desperation as well. It's like Ellie is, the most important thing in the world to him at this point. So
exactly,
anything to get her back. Ben, final thoughts on this scene? Yes,
I like that it was like a mirror image to the video game, but also to talk about what Peter said there about him getting back to health so quickly. I think it's interesting that like for 20 years, when he was basically just like depressed as hell after Sarah died, and he was on autopilot, and now when he has Ellie back and Ellie's in risk now, it's almost like, like when mothers like lift up cars over their babies, it's almost like he's a Terminator now. It's like completely, he's just
absolutely.
He's a monster.
Funny you say that. Craig Mason said that in the podcast talking about this episode, that like if he didn't have Ellie, he'd have probably just died. Like he'd have let the people kill him. He wouldn't have cared. This is what gave him the adrenaline to kind of to keep going. Still, it's a leap of logic, but still. Go on, Evan.
One more thing. When I seen this scene, I know everybody. I've never, like I said, I never played the game, and we're all, everybody was introduced to Joel and Ellie from the beginning, so they're like the heroes. But this scene, to me, Joel was like a villain. He was just brutal, and from these people's point of view, he is the villain.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, in the game, these are more morally corrupt people. Like we don't know if these guys even know like about the cannibalism thing, or if they're particularly bad people. So they feel a bit more innocent here, whereas like they're just regular enemies in the game. So like, but I'll pop your kneecap, and it's okay, I believe him, are like two of my favorite Joel lines. I'm happy that they stayed this faithful to this sequence. I think it plays just as well. So we come back to Ellie. She's kind of trying to escape from the cell, and she sees something that shocks her. David comes in with the bowl of chili, and he looks behind him and sees the ear. So Efren, was this a surprise to you at this point? Like you hadn't really clocked any of this?
Not yet. I'm so totally naive. I thought it was somebody who was just injured or something.
Yeah.
Efren thought venison had ears like that, isn't that right?
An ear on the floor.
Yeah. He sees such good in people, and yet he won't let me look after his AF-15.
So, but
Peter,
then I started putting two and two together right around this scene.
Why did you see the ear on the floor? Yeah. Peter, you were like certain of it at this stage before this part.
Before this.
Luke, you were the same from the get-go, and I mean, I think it's disgusting. It's great. I thought.
What a waste
of an ear. It's all cartilage, isn't it? Doesn't have to be very appetizing.
Big.
Yeah. Yeah, so we got this kind of David starts kind of saying it's deer meat, I swear, and tiny little pieces. She said, were you all like confident that Ellie was getting out of this at this point? I'm curious. That's like, how did you think that was gonna go? Like,
I thought that she would have tried to persuade him, and then he would have let her out, and then she would have made her move. The fact that she played it too quick. She went too quick with the trying to grab for the keys and injure him. To me, I just called out stupid. You know, I was like, "What's she doing?" I really thought that this was playing out in the wrong way.
Yeah, in the game, it plays out almost the exact same. But she wakes up and she sees like it's the butcher room is what she's in. So she sees James cutting up a body. But she actually eats the food that he gives her because she's starving.
Yeah,
and like she believes him that like she takes him at his word that it's dear me. She says like I swear, and like again, you know, James is still sort of like not really evil at this point. You know, he doesn't do the hand touch thing yet, and the only indication of that is like earlier toward the interrogation scene where someone refers to, he goes, "Where's the girl?" and he goes, "Oh, he's David's new pet." It's like to Ellie, David might still be you know what he's doing is morally grey, but he's not necessarily evil. But yeah, in the show, she's a bit more visceral, like reaction from her. Like she calls him a sick fuck and like screams at him. You know, I thought that was like an interesting kind of contrast there. But yeah, he says like I would have told you and everything, which I'm not sure I quite believe. Yeah, and he gives this kind of speech about like well, we're just meat really, and do you really buy that? David sees Ellie as being like particularly special because in the game I think it makes more sense because you spend that time with him and he sees how capable Ellie is. Like she's killing loads of fish, she's holding her own, she's almost a better fighter than he is. Did this kind of part make sense to all of you guys? Like Luke?
But this is just like his indoctrination speech, you know, he's trying to win her over by saying the right things.
Yeah, but I think he's not like necessarily lying. Like she is special to him, like the way he says, like I see everyone else is a sheep and you're a shepherd, like I am. Yeah, Efren, what do you think? Like,
I thought it was very creepy, and I'm saying, you know, how does he know? He just met her, you know, and just because she's fighting to survive, who wouldn't do what she's doing to survive? And this is when I go, this guy's a creep. Something's, you know, this is when I finally, you know, the light bulb went off. You know, this guy's, what is wrong with this guy? You know, she's a kid. You know, we're the same. I go, this is, I didn't, you know, that's a very disturbing scene.
He's almost like a dark reflection of Bill because both of those characters, in a way, their like real life didn't start until the apocalypse happened. Like he says, he was a teacher and he's always had a violent heart, but he struggled with it for a long time. So like a horrific idea of like he was a teacher who was like dreaming about the kids like during that time. It's it's gross.
I just probably read into that he was a teacher and then he's always been like this, so he got sacked for doing something inappropriate.
Yeah,
that's possible. Yeah, I don't know. Like, the way he says, like, I struggled with it for a long time. Like, I guess maybe he didn't act on it until the apocalypse happened, and then he kind of gained this cult's trust or formed this cult and kind of got into a position where he could do that. Yeah, it's very, very kind of unsettling scene. Ben, do you think this was a good translation from the game to the show?
If it had another 20 minutes, maybe, but no.
Just the scene, I mean.
Just the scene? No, because I don't understand David's character.
Okay.
Can you go back a slide?
Yeah.
When he says, "I always had a violent heart." Violent. Yeah. What do you think he means by that?
I think predatory, I guess. Like I think he's referring to the kiddie thing.
The kid, like the child predator aspect.
Yeah, that's sort of why I kind of interpreted that.
See, I don't even. I know that's obviously subtext and probably a part of his intention, but I do genuinely think that he was looking for a sort of loyal second hand, maybe.
Yeah, I
don't think that's what he was looking for. I got the impression he was looking for a sexual partner.
Well, that too, I think, but I don't think he's necessarily. I agree with Ben. I don't think he's necessarily lying here. He is manipulating her, and like
But I think he does genuinely see something in Ellie.
Yeah, but I think that makes more sense in the game than it does in the show. Like,
I'm probably
this is just from a brief conversation and the fact that she snuck up on them. That he sees her as that special. But yeah, when he puts the hand on the bar and like, it's just gross. Yeah, it's really like, but even the way like he promises that like, oh, they won't kill Joel if I tell them like, if you just like, come with me, like it's But like,
would you believe that he would keep that promise?
No, I mean the guys are already looking for him. Like for all he knows, Joel's dead already.
Oh yeah, he said earlier on that. Yeah,
that's something I think he is probably lying about. Was this a surprise, like this part, to anybody really, except Ephraim because he's so trusting?
No, I wasn't trusting with this part, man. This guy's a creep. Any old man, young girl, come on.
Prior to this, the way he touches her hand, though, did you get that kind of vibe off him from this, like from throughout this episode?
Yeah.
Ben, English Ben, what did you think of this? Like revealed this element of David's.
What do you think? What do I think? It's great.
You don't agree with it? No.
It's the worst of humanity. Yeah. I mean, again, though, I saw it coming. Like I saw that kind of sinister element to his personality. Maybe not explicitly the pedophilia thing, but like I knew there was going to be another element on top of the whole sort of cannibal thing. I really don't know how much I believed these scenes, and I don't know whether it was the actor's performance. I don't know if it was the way it was written this episode, but like I just really struggled to like. It didn't feel as authentic as some of this series has felt for me. Yeah, like there was some disconnect.
That's fair. There. I think part of that might be a lot of like the relationships you see are like familiar ones. Like there's a love story or a brother and two brothers together, whereas this is like an unusual situation, I guess.
Yeah, but then there's like there's obviously horrendous sort of characters like this, portrayed in other things. And like I'm just off the top of my head, Jackie Earle Haley in that Little Children film where he plays a
I had that in my head as well.
I really apologies, Jackie, but I really believed he was a paedophile. Do you know what I mean? Like, and this just felt, I don't know, it all just felt a bit too staged and a bit.
Okay.
I don't know. This whole episode for me, it didn't land.
Yeah. Prior to this episode, like I did a video about who I wanted to play the supporting cast after they announced Bella and Pedro, and Patrick Wilson was who I had picked for David. I thought that would have been a good choice based off his. You ever see Hard Candy?
I've not seen that. No.
It's Elliot Page. She was like, they were like 15 at the time.
Right.
But like, he's kind of plays it's sort of that duality. Like he's the nice guy, but he's actually a predator. And he's also in Little Children. Actually, he's also. I'm reminded of that, but yeah, I think that's fair enough. Like in the game, it's amazing. I think the context again of like what they've been through up to this point sells this scene a bit better than the show does.
I think one of the problems with the shows like this, but going back to The Walking Dead, when we had Negan and the governor, they were around for a long time, so you got to know them more and how evil they were. This guy,
very true.
And just one episode and you're done. We don't really know him. And that other girl, the other woman with the community, she was there for 2 episodes and we're done. So we don't really know, especially people who don't play the game. Like,
Yeah, well, that's what I mean. Like David's only in one chapter of the game, but it's just like characters weave in and out of The Last of Us. Joe and Ellie are the core of it. So it's not an ensemble. But I agree. Like, I think more time with him would have been benefited this greatly. I think, and like, had we had like scenes of them together being kind of friendly, it would have sold it a bit better for me, definitely. I love that she breaks the whole breaking the finger part. Like the second he puts his hand up, I was just waiting for it. Yeah, that was great, and tries to grab the keys. Did any of you think she'd get out at this point?
I did.
Yeah, this is it. She's making a break for it.
Yeah.
Luke, you didn't think
I think she played
part,
it too soon.
that line, you little, like, he didn't perform it with enough like vigor and visceral. Do you know what I mean? Like he just, I've really felt like that character just was a damp squid for me.
In the game, that's such a shame. That's such a shame, man. I think that breaks my heart that you feel that way about this is one of the best moments of the whole series. Yeah, I know. In the game, he says "you stupid little girl," and I think he sells it better than Then again, he's trying to still putting that face on.
It's always better to use the C word whenever you can.
Yeah,
it's wasted in this world.
Yeah, but she says like kind of a recurring thing throughout the episode is he wants to know her name and she won't tell him, and she finally says Ellie. Yeah, at least the girl that broke your fucking finger. Fantastic, but like tiny little pieces. She said, and I love the way Ellie's incredibly brave character, and she's being incredibly brave here. But you just see on her face the thought of like being chopped up and eaten.
Yeah.
Like, just horrifies her, and I think it's quite realistic in that way. And Bella, is just phenomenal. I think in this moment particularly. But yeah, it's in the exact same in the game with the tiny little pieces thing. Tell them Ellie broke your finger. So go back to Joel. He's walking around kind of looking for Ellie. Again, another kind of, it's just even screen grabs of faces. You can just see so much on these actors' performances, but like the way he sees the blood trail and the look of like, oh no, on his face, like that it might be Ellie, was fantastic. And he goes in and he kind of sees Ellie's stuff, and then the body's hanging up, and it's pulled the direct from the game. In the game, he actually finds like a little kind of inventory list of like all the people they've found. So in the game, they are actively hunting, going out and finding people and killing them to bring them back. So I don't know if they, would you, any of you think that would have kind of been more interesting if they had explicitly said that in this episode?
No, because you need that air of mystery, don't you?
Yeah. Peter, you prefer ambiguous?
Yeah, I like ambiguous. I think it said enough. I think it did enough. I mean, you knew exactly what was going on, didn't you?
Yeah, that's fair. So yeah, James and David walk in. They kind of hold Ellie down. She bites David, and she reveals she's one ace up her sleeve to get her out of this situation, that she's infected. So Luke, you brought up a few episodes ago about whether Ellie biting someone infects them.
Yeah, so I did kind of jump into that mindset. So once I determined that these were going to be eating people, I did start to wonder, I said about how they might want to dissect her, how she might be infecting people. And James kind of said that those were good theories, good ideas. So I thought it was all going to come to a head in this. Yeah. We still don't know. We still don't know. She's saying it in order to
she's bluffing. She doesn't know that. Yeah, exactly.
And we don't know as the audience because he's not to jump too far ahead, but we still don't know if that is the case or not. But I'm glad that somebody at least acknowledged it. It was a thought that I had for a really long time whilst watching this show. So I'm glad to see that the characters are thinking about it as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but like I said, she's bluffing. She doesn't actually know that for a fact. And but I do think eating her would infect you, surely. Like she can't transmit it necessarily.
Yeah, because she's got cordyceps in her arm.
Depends if you cook it out, but don't you? If you cook it, it may kill it.
But this is the thing, right? Because she sliced that. There was that. I want to say like zombie, but it's not infected. She sliced his head open, and you could see like the fungus within underneath the skin. So surely they would, if she was contaminated meat in that way, they would spot it pretty quick. Same as when the pathologist was taking the bit out of the person's mouth, they saw the actual fungus, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting, but I love the way she throws back like everything happens for a reason. It's exactly the same in the game as well, and she grabs I think in the game it's a machete, but in the kind of what you call it, the butcher, is it butcher's blade? Cleaver, that's the word. Yeah, meat cleaver.
I thought she was superb in that scene, man. She really sold the kind of the terror and the horror.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think like Ashley Johnson's performance is a bit more subdued. But Bella, I think when she gets emotional, that's where she really shines. Is like those kind of heated moments where she's just like screaming or something horrible's happening. That's where she really sells it for me. So yeah, she grabs the kind of thing and stabs James in the neck, or hits him in the neck and kills him. Sad to see Troy Baker. Funny again to see like Ellie kill Troy Baker. I thought that was quite funny. Irish Ben, did you think the same?
Yeah, it's a bit an odd sight to see.
Yeah, definitely. So she runs out, and yeah, so this is sort of like a boss fight, I guess, in the game. One of the only kind of like you fight a bloater early on, like 1-on-1. So other than that, this is like the only boss in the game. But like it's an oil lamp that falls that sets fire to the restaurant. But you're sneaking around, you have to like sneak up behind him and stab him, and there's like black plates smashed on the ground. If you step on them, he'll know where you are, and things. Really tense sequence in the in the game. Efren, you're not a huge fan of horror. Were you on the edge of your seat during this kind of the sequence here?
No, for some reason, I mean, I've enjoyed this whole series so far, but it doesn't. For some reason, it doesn't have the same edge of your seat. I'm going back to The Walking Dead. When that first started, the first like 3 or 4 seasons, every episode it had me on the edge of my seat. My heart was thumping because I never read the comic book. But this, I've enjoyed this series. Don't get me wrong, but none of these shows, none of these episodes has got me on the edge of my seat.
Yeah, because we know that like Joel's nearby. Were any is expecting that it would be Joel that would come to the rescue?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I did think that.
That's so as well. Luke, did you think that?
Do you know what? By this point, the thought didn't actually occur to me. Like, I'm not going to sit here and claim that I did or didn't. I was just enjoying it for what it was. I was just waiting to see how it would play out.
I think in a way it's good that Joel didn't rescue her because it shows that Ellie can, defend herself.
Absolutely.
She got out of it on her own, basically.
Yeah, that's what I love about this is that she gets her own way out of it. Like she didn't need Joel, really. Just shows how far she's kind of come. But some great like lines, are you just that special? And like no one, he's right actually as well. Like no one infected fights this hard to stay alive. I
mean, now that you've got those slides up, I'm surprised that Joel didn't come to save her, because if you go back, that sign, when we are in need, he comes, like he provides. You would assume that then that would be Joel coming to save her. So the kind of foreshadowing of that sign being there.
That's a good point. I suppose it's just a coincidence, I guess. But yeah, that would have been a cool like foreshadowing if that was something you could point out had that happened.
Just like these lines as well. They're great lines, and he's just so understated in his approach to it. Like the place is setting on fire. This should be a like big climactic and he's hollering and spitting, and he's just casually like, I've really.
Yeah, I think that's better. It makes it more disturbing and more creepy.
Yeah, and that in the game he's very understated. Like he's very unassuming, polite.
You can have that, but then
he stays that way.
What makes a good psychopath or a villain is the sudden switch, and there was no switch. It was fucking monotone.
He's overconfident. He's probably never been challenged before, so he thought he was going to get away with it.
Exactly. Yeah.
But then laugh. Do something different with your performance. Like I don't know. I didn't realize how much I hated it.
Well, he is. that's a tragedy. Man. It really is.
So are we assuming because seeing him with the rest of his flock, as it were, we didn't really get any indication that he was a pedophile or had that seediness to him. We knew that something was up. We knew that he was feeding them people. And we didn't really know how many of them knew what was going on. So there was always that there. But this really does just seem like a switch was activated once he saw her, right? It was... We had no indication before that he was that way until he approached her in that cage.
Yeah, I think that definitely. Like it's supposed to be a surprise, and in the game it's more surprising. But like there is a line like he gives later about like I like it when they struggle. I think. That tells you that this has happened before.
I just feel like his own people would have turned on him. Like so maybe he was maybe he was never intending to let her out of that cage anyway. You know, he might want to keep her and everything else, but his flock would never know that she existed, because that's the only way he could have kept it quiet for 20 odd years.
Yeah, I mean, it makes you wonder, like, you know, there is a girl who is Ellie's age in that group, and like he's never done anything to her, but he also, the way he says, I've decided you need a father, I'm going to keep you, and he refers to himself as her father as well, so was that to him deciding, I'm going to start abusing you, you know?
Also as well, Gary Glitter kept it under wraps for a very long time, so
this is true.
But also, that is also just how cults work.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
whoever's the patriarch tends to just have their pick.
See what they want to see. A lot of people.
Exactly.
Yeah. Like, I think like a lot of them probably do know about the cannibalism, and they're just sort of ignoring it, you know, because that's what they have to do to survive.
It's easy just to survive that way.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, this shot on the top left, I think that's top 5 shots of the show for me. The silhouette of him with the fire in the background. But yeah, so like exactly like the game, she kind of jumps up behind him, he kind of overturns him, and again, like this from Bella here, the screaming was just incredible, I thought, for a performance. And here we go.
She absolutely sold it.
Yeah, 100%. And like the fighting is the part I like the most. And you see her kind of grab the cleaver, don't be afraid. Like, yeah, she, you know, this is one of the most traumatic things that ever happened to Ellie at this point. And the closest she comes to not just dying, but like all other horrible things happening to her. And then she grabs the blade and she just goes absolute ham on him. Yeah, this is a shot that's directly from the game, and I think they translated it beautifully here. Any thoughts on this scene? Irish Ben, as a like translation from the game, how do you feel here?
Pretty much perfect. Like you were saying about Bella Ramsey, I was one of those people who were a bit skeptical about her. Every single episode, I'm like, holy cow, this girl. And this is one of those moments where it's like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, absolutely.
She's killing. Yeah.
GP, do you feel the same way kind of here?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd say it's more intense in the game, I feel, but Bella sold it. When she's going hell for leather on David there, you're getting the blood spatter effects up on the camera.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
and
I thought that was absolutely brilliant.
That look on her face at the end as well. Like, I think, like for me, she puts more emotion into it than Ellie does in the game. So I think in this scene, I actually prefer Bella's take on it.
Reminded me of Shaun of the Dead.
Yeah. Just put a bit of Queen on the background. Efren, kind of thoughts on this? Any thoughts on this kind of climactic battle?
This is the scene where I thought how many times they made her do this scene to get it to get it right. And I started thinking, this actress is so young that I would assume that she would need counseling after this scene, because this was a horrific scene. You know, it was uncomfortable to watch. You know, and the anguish on her face. I'm like, dang, man, this is what really told me this is the right person for this part.
Yeah,
her acting was superb.
Absolutely, I think so as well. Ben, any thoughts there on this moment?
Which one?
Like yourself?
Just incredibly acted and really well shot. The way it sort of panned up, you know, seamlessly, so you sort of didn't obviously see what was going on underneath, so she could just really let rip, and it was just a really nice kind of effect shot without having to do the effects, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
It just meant that she could really kind of go for it, and she's cemented herself as an A-lister, you know, in Hollywood after this show for sure.
Yeah, definitely agree.
Pedro Pascal, I think, was on the fringe of doing that anyway because of Mando and stuff, but like for her, most definitely, she's put herself in the forefront.
Yeah, definitely. Luke, any thoughts on this kind of final shot or how the sense?
Efren pretty much hit the nail on the head. You know, this is horrific. This is not a nice place for this character to be. It's very easy for us as the viewer to say like, oh, she's a badass now and this, that, and the other. But, you know, we don't want these children to go through this. We don't want them to become like this moving forward. And so, you know, it's all very well saying she is now a badass, but now she's probably got a lot to work through.
Well, this is, like I said, traumatic, you know. I mean, we potentially see kind of, you know, how this affects her next episode. Peter, any kind of thoughts on this episode this like
just
last.
like what everybody else has said. I thought it was superb. Absolutely brilliant. Superb.
Ultimately, as well, I think she's probably had, even though it's been horrible in terms of like if you were to compare it to our childhoods and stuff, but like it's fairly shielded what she's grown up with. You know, she was in the confines. There was a regime in place. You know, like she's not gone through true trauma like yet. So I think this is going to be a really kind of vital chapter in her kind of emotional arc in the long run that we can look back on and go, yeah, that was the turning point.
Yeah, absolutely. So she gets outside, and yeah, we got kind of there. Joel and Ellie. Like, it's been a while, hasn't it? Like before they've been like both in shape together. It's been like, you know, two full episodes. But yeah, just like she's just screaming and like, you know, it's like it's me and this is beautiful, and this just plucked on my heartstrings. And I'm curious if you all noticed that, like, he calls her baby girl, which is what he called Sarah. That was his.
I didn't notice that.
Yeah, I didn't have my floppy membrane in my ear. I didn't hear that. So
yeah. Luke, did you clock that?
Yeah, so I clocked that, and I don't know if you've got the slide, but the final shot is of him hugging her, and the watch is in frame. And I literally turned to my wife and I said, that is the shot. You know, this whole episode has been about, you know, fathers. You know, fathers have been, whether it's from the seedy preacher talking about fatherhood and who he's going to take care of, to whether it be Joel and Ellie. And as soon as I heard him say baby girl, and then we got that shot, I just, that was it. That was the moment for this episode for me.
Yeah, it's in those kind of moments where, like, you know, Ellie's sort of an echo of Sarah. They always focus on the watch. You know,
the character of Sarah is still so strong throughout this show. Like every single time I see Pedro's face, you know, he's acting, and that feeling of loss. And even though we only saw her in that one episode, and then we had a little glimmer of her in like a dream sequence flashback before. That character has stuck with us for all these episodes now. So I think it's really powerful stuff to be able to have this moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. Irish Ben, just, you know, in this episode, like, we're seeing their relationship come kind of full circle here. He's her daughter. That's how he views her now. Do you feel like they've perfectly translated that from the games, like overall even?
Yes, but for a television show format, because in the video game, at this point in the game, you're probably what, 15? If you're taking your time, you're 15 hours in.
Yeah, probably average playthrough would be 15.
At this point, we're what, maybe 6-7 hours in.
No, this is right towards the end. It's probably after this point.
In terms of runtime for the actual TV show.
Oh yeah, about half. Yeah, I'd say half the time probably.
And we also had a 3-month jump at the end of the Sam and Henry one.
Yes.
Yeah, so there's a lot that we didn't see, but they play off each other so well that you can understand that relationships that are growing. So it works, I think.
Yeah. Okay. And GP, same kind of question. Do you feel that way?
Yeah. Obviously, the connection and the bond growed strongest at that point, and it's travelled over well from the game, I thought.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So they walk off, they limp off together anyway. Just one side note, she should have more blood on her, I think.
Yeah.
It's just something I kind of thought when she came out of the thing, and I think she should do. Yeah.
She'll be looking like Kerry.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's the final shot. So that is episode 8 of The Last of Us. Any kind of final things you just want to kind of say about the episode before we talk about what's up on our channels? We'll start with Peter.
Just thoroughly enjoyed it. I thought it was a great episode. Probably my favorite so far. I really liked him as a villain. I get what Ben's saying, but I liked the kind of the silent kind of killer element to him. I thought it was great. I thought the action was great, and I thought the performances were superb. Brilliant episode.
Awesome. Luke?
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. It was a little bit predictable, like I said from the beginning. There was a lot that was very much, if you're a fan of horror films, you know where this is going. But it didn't take away from it being a good experience, a fun show to watch. So far, this show has aced every episode. So even if I think it's very unlikely, but even if it failed to hit the landing with the finale, this has still been one of the best shows I've ever seen.
Yeah, I think I definitely agree with that. Ben?
Yeah, predictable, underwhelming. I didn't like this episode really. It for me, I will pin that on the villain, just because I think it was centered around him, and for me, the approach to the character, whether that be faithful to the game or not, was just really kind of one-dimensional.
Do you think, based on like what we've done a few comparisons and said how it is in the game, do you think if they had done it that way, you would still feel that way, or it's like a performance thing possibly?
I think it might have helped if he was believably on her side, from the off, and maybe that's the way it was framed. Maybe even in terms of promotion, like I just saw him in a promotion before, and I was like, "Oh, right, that's the villain of next week or whatever." So, or maybe it's just my hideously cynical brain. But either way, I just felt it was just a really bland approach to what could have been a really kind of dynamic and scary villain. So yeah, for me it fell flat, but I do think Bella Ramsey was incredible, and I do think it will be quite a vital kind of point in her character arc down the line. So yeah.
All right, Efren?
Have these people never heard of snowmobiles? I'm just wondering, I think it would have came in handy for this episode,
Gas is a commodity in this world, it's not very common.
Jeremy Renner in the background.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
When I seen this episode yesterday, I was like, oh my God, what a good episode. But talking it with you guys, and especially I'm seeing Ben's point of view a little bit more, must say, it was okay. It was a good episode, don't get me wrong, but just kind of predictable too, so.
Yeah. Okay. GP?
Yeah, like we were saying before, if they did this over 2 episodes and took from the game with the introduction of David, I think it would have been a lot better and more people would have been on board with it. For me, it was a good episode. I enjoyed it. Can't wait for the next.
Yeah, all right. And Ben?
Again, like everyone's saying, I totally agree with Better Ben that if we had 10 more minutes with David, it would have been great. But yeah, it was a bit lackluster. But great episode. Lackluster in this season is still like 9 out of 10.
Oh,
still
brilliant.
Still would be the best episode of any other show. Yeah, absolutely. For me, I completely agree. Just like I think 20 more minutes, split it into 2, or make this one of those hour 20 episodes, and this would have been perfect. I think, honestly, I didn't really have. He's not as good as he is in the game, but I didn't have a problem with the performance particularly. I think the religious element I could take or leave. I did like the cannibalism, like that kind of the teases of that. I thought was really well done. But like ultimately, it really falls short as like, and it's crazy because I think up to this point, basically every side character in this game is improved on from the game. Like I think Sarah is better in the show than she is in the game. I think Henry and Sam are better in the show than they are in the game. Riley is, and Bill and Frank certainly as well. So, and Joel and Ellie I think are like almost on par, if not on par. So to take like one of the best characters from the game and he's just falls short, I think is really kind of it's unfortunate. But what's here, I think is great. It's just it's not the masterpiece that it could have been, I think. So that's kind of my thoughts on it. So that is episode 8. We will be back next week to talk about the finale. Any kind of thoughts on it, or any theories? Like, we've 45 minutes left of the show. Like, do you think we're getting the Fireflies or a Cure is coming or anything like that? And you have any kind of wild theories you want to throw out?
I think this is the weird position we're in, though, that like for someone like me who hasn't played the games, is that like I'm coming into the finale and it's almost like a fresh start, on the finale, which is a very unique thing. There's other than of course the Fireflies and things, and like I feel like I don't even know, basically, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, absolutely. Luke?
Yeah, I mean, if this was any other apocalyptic show with that sort of like zombie-like feel, which this definitely isn't, this is very much a character-driven show, and that's why I love it. If it was like that, we would get a big attack, But I don't really see that happening. I'm not sure how this is going to end as a season. Like knowing that we're going to get a season 2, is it just going to play out like any normal episode, and we'll just pick back up again in season 2, much like the Loki series done with Marvel? Or is it actually going to be something, more climactic? I'm really not sure, but I'll be here to find out.
Yeah. And Peter, any kind of theories or what you're hoping to see or expecting to see? Are you muted, Peter?
Yeah, I'm muted. First of all, I don't want to know because I'm enjoying kind of learning each episode.
I wouldn't dare tell you. That's why I wouldn't even dare use a frame of that episode. The thumb here.
I kind of think this season wraps up the first game. Is that right?
Yes.
So the game has to have had a kind of a line in the sand end point, I would have thought. So I'm in my head, I'm thinking, I wonder if it ends where he gets that to the Fireflies or something like that. And then the next game picks up where you find out what happens after that or something. I don't know. Like everybody else has said, I don't kind of how you neatly tie it up in another 45 minutes.
Yeah. I will say that in the game, there's about 45 minutes left of the game too. So I think it's going to be pretty faithful for this chapter, bar like kind of a clicker like action sequence. I don't think they're going to do that in it. GP and Ben, I assume you guys two are really excited to see how this kind of wraps up.
Yeah, I'm just wondering.
Not saying anything about it.
Going to do any setup for season 2 or not?
There's an opportunity to. We'll see.
Yeah.
That's all we'll say. I think GP, I'd be afraid of going too far. And Ben, excited.
Me, Ben?
Yes.
You, Ben?
Yeah, I am. That's all I'll say. I'm terrified of saying something.
It's gonna be like I'm excited, but at the same time, it's like I'm sad that it's like over. Then
that was a really quick 9 weeks.
Yeah.
Crazy how fast it went, isn't it? Yeah.
Mad.
Yeah, absolutely. So that is what we have next week. So that is Wednesday at 8 p.m. So looking forward to it, and we'll have a good conversation then. So Peter, what you got coming up on your channel?
Tomorrow night we're doing a hangout because my wife's away again. So 9 o'clock we're going to do geeky news, talk a little bit about Scream, comics, MCU games, Mandalorian, all that kind of jazz. So there's a fair few people joining us, so it should be fun.
Yeah, and then I don't have a slide for Monday's show, but we are doing our monthly toy show. So excited to talk about that. We're going to be talking video games and 1/6 and all that jazz. So yeah, subscribe to Triple G Comics. The link is in the description if you want to check that out. Luke, any kind of stuff coming up on your channel you want to talk about?
Yeah, so I've still been diving in with the short form content, doing YouTube shorts, really enjoying it. Delved into Spider-Man, so I'm giving some little brief 1-minute shorts or less about individual characters from Spider-Man. So yeah, I'm enjoying that. And then also Peter and I have just recently recorded a Making Sense of Pence show and tell, which is going to be going out on my channel on Sunday night. So hopefully if people can head on over there and check that out, it'd be much appreciated.
Yeah, absolutely. The link is in the description. Efren.
So Peter and I, we always do a monthly top picks of comic books, which I enjoy a lot, so it's just talking to two old guys talking about comic books and reminiscing, And
who said I was old? What are you talking about? I'm in my prime.
Yeah. So, and then the other one, this is on Peter's channel. Comics are in our DNA. We just did another commission video, which was a lot of fun showing our books that we have done commissions with. So, and I do other things too. I do shorts and, whatever fits my fancy, I do a video on, so just having fun, guys, basically.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd recommend everybody check that out. And GP?
Yeah, so I'm having to play around with one of my other channels, Destroy All Movies, and I'll put a full movie up with Werewolf Woman. It's an old Italian movie from the 70s. So if you like hairy tits, stop looking through my window.
That is going in my quote.
Just put the whole film up.
Yeah, because I don't give a fuck about copyright claims.
There you go.
Oh, yeah. You're throwing 2,000 subscribers down the drain, man. I'd be wary of that now.
And tomorrow on the GP Venom channel is my Ice Cream Man review, Volume 1.
Nice. Love that series.
I've heard amazing things about it. I really need to check that one out.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then Ben, I don't have a thumbnail, but sir, we did a Mandalorian review, episode 1 review last week, so we have that.
If you want to see hairy tits. Yeah, so my Star Wars Joker Day is nearly finished. I'm nearly up to 30. Thanks the Lord that it's nearly ended. So that's just under my shorts. I think I'm going to do Geeky Gas Bag after work tomorrow, like between when I finish work and when my daughter comes home from nursery, because that's the only fucking time I get in my life. So yeah, probably going to do that tomorrow, even if it's just myself, just chatting about all the things that I can't when you boys are up past my bedtime. So yeah, other than that, that's pretty much it.
All right, so the link for everybody's channels is in the description down below, and that is the show. Thank you everybody for first off, thank you guys for being here. Thank you everybody for watching, whether live or on the rewind. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button, notification bell, all that jazz. We will see you next week, and remember, when you're lost in the darkness, look for the light, endure and survive, and we'll see you next time.